Action, take one.
Hello, welcome to Meet Me at the Movies. I am Noel T. Manning II, hanging out with Thomas Manning, and back joining us. We got Adam Long. We had Adam on just recently, talking about disaster films. And if you're wondering, is this like, Master of Disaster Part 2? It's not. But one of the things that Adam loves doing is loves talking about physical media, especially new releases on Blu-ray and 4K and 28K and and Shaka Khan K and all of those as well. So we're going to dive into some of those. And Thomas has got one too that he's going to talk about that was on Adam's list. But before we do that, we're going to dive into a few other things. But Adam, welcome back. Glad to see you, man.
Well, thanks for having me on again. I mean, I thought after the last appearance that would be enough of me for a while, but you're a glutton for punishment, my friend. So,
hey, man. Yeah, and that's what our good buddy Greg Tillman used to say every time that we had the show. So we're surviving and we're keeping on going. Yeah, Thomas.
I mean, if you never bleed, you're never going to grow. So
there you go. That's it. Yeah, absolutely.
No pain, no gain. Well, speaking of pain and gain, tell you, Denzel Washington, Thomas, back on the big screen with Equalizer 3, and you're one of these that you haven't seen any of these previous films, but you've got some interesting background knowledge on with kind of the research and development. So Thomas did the R&D for us. It is in theaters. You can check it out if you like action. If you've seen the other two, you're definitely going to be checking out Denzel on the big screen again, Thomas.
yeah, that's right. So it's Denzel and Antoine Fuqua working together again. They first collaborated with Training Day back in, I believe, 2001, and they went more than a decade without working together, but then came back together with the first Equalizer film in 2014, loosely based on the 80s TV series on CBS, and very much just classic tale of what happens when you mess with the wrong guy who has a really extensive background in military and combat, and so yeah, you had the 2014 film, then you had a sequel a few years later, and there's been a bit of a gap between Equalizer 2 and Equalizer 3. It was kind of in development hell for a little bit, but it's here now, and the first two were pretty financially successful based on their budget, as these gritty R-rated action films. They found their audience, and we'll see if this one continues to deliver.
Yeah, and it's the perfect time really we're kind of in that in-between zone. I used to call this kind of the dead zone between summer and fall releases, and sometimes those films that are released right around this time period can find ways to have some successful box office for a few weeks because the competition's not really strong, not really heavy, and can find audiences. And Denzel always tends to find audiences, and there are some that are always going to go check out a Denzel film. I remember the 80s TV show, and they actually have a revival of it going on now with Queen Latifah. And so the Equalizer is alive and well, interestingly enough, on television and on the big screen. Any final thoughts you want to make sure you share about Denzel, Equalizer 3, and then we'll see if Adam has anything he wants to chat about with Equalizer.
Yeah, so I haven't seen either of the first two, but I'm surprised I haven't yet, because usually I'm a sucker for these, these old man action films. Whether it's, listen, I'm talking about your Takens, Liam Neeson, or a few years ago we had Bob Odenkirk in Nobody. These guys they're kind of retired military guys that are brought back in to the game for some other reason. So anyway, all that to say that I guess I need to catch up on these movies so I can watch the third one in theaters.
Yeah, and this time the mob, the actual mob gets involved, and if you want to check out the trailer, if you're watching this show now, you're seeing some of the scenes from it. I tell you, it looks fascinating. It looks action packed. It's I think whatever you would want from an action film is going to be there for this with Denzel in part 3 of The Equalizer. Adam, any thoughts or comments you want to dive in on?
You stole my thunder earlier because I was going to ask you if Queen Latifah made a cameo in the film, or if they digitally brought back Edward Woodward, with, resurrected him digitally like they did Peter Cushing in the.
Well, we'll have to wait and see. I haven't seen any of that pop up, but yeah, the film is in theaters now. So for action fans, you may want to check that out. And if you are a lover of film, there's a guy named Mark Cousins who did the complete story of film, kind of an odyssey, about 10 years ago, or a decade or so ago, and so much has happened since then. Decided to come back and expand upon that, and recently released the complete story of film. I think Adam has his as well that he's going to hold up. Thomas is kind of left out of the picture there. Sorry, Thomas, you don't have one of these, man. You can borrow mine if you want. But this covers so many different aspects of cinema, from the birth of cinema to the global aspects of cinema. And it's got a great Q&A with Mark Cousins in this. It kind of covers why he did this and why he decided to revisit it. Because how many hours, Adam, of footage covering movies on this?
I think it's about 15 hours, I think, altogether. Did you feel the desire?
So, Adam, why do you think this particular documentary really is a full-blown documentary, 15 plus hours, 18 hours of other extras? Why do you think something like this is relevant, and why would film lovers want to dive into this?
I think a lot of film critics, quote unquote, today, if it was made before they were born, they just don't care, and they don't have any reference for what came before them. And I think this would serve as a good primer for people who don't have a lot of the necessary knowledge that they need in order to make informed decisions about whether films are good or not. This is a good, it's not the be-all, end-all. It's a great film, but I do think that it's a good starting place. And for a lot of people who just don't have a good knowledge of cinema in general, I think it's an excellent place to start, and it could serve as an educational tool for people who are serious about film criticism. And if you're serious about it, you want to know as much as you can. So that's just my take on it.
Yeah, I'll tell you, one of the things I also appreciate about it, and kind of takes me back to when I used to buy vinyl. And originally would get the vinyl, and I would open it up, and I would look for the liner notes, which would give you all this background material, lyric sheets, but it would also tell you about the making of it, all of that kind of stuff. And all of that's in here. Of course, you can find it on the disc themselves, but also in a nice little booklet that comes with it. It gives you, if you want to read, if you're somebody who actually knows how to read and wants to read, there's some great reading resources in here as well. So it's one
fewer of us.
So the documentary series is here. It's called The Complete Story of Film, directed by Mark Cousins, and this is an expansion of an earlier one as well. Thomas, thoughts, questions?
Oh, so yeah, I know you said it's an expansion on something he did about a decade or so ago, and he explores some of the things that have shifted within filmmaking since then. So what are some of those specific elements that are in this edition that he didn't explore previously?
I think a lot of it covers the advent of digital technology in terms of replacing film. I think this is about how digital has basically taken over in the last decade, more so. I mean, it was there before the last decade, but it has really accelerated, and I think it's basically recapping and a summation of how film has become a thing of the past. And so I think that's a lot. I also wanted to make mention that Music Box Films is the distributor on this Blu-ray too, for whatever it's worth. I just wanted to get that out. I forgot to say that earlier, but yeah, I think that's what it is. It's mainly about the digital aspect of filmmaking and how important that is, which is a big game changer.
It also explores some of the filmmakers that have kind of made their mark since that last one was done. Names like Todd Phillips shows up. Also, you've got others like Tim Miller with Deadpool shows up. Barry Jenkins. is one that shows up. So they also look at filmmakers who are providing messages and making a mark as well in the world of filmmaking. So it covers both what's happening in the industry, but also who's making some of these things happen. Story of Film, you can check that out, the complete story of film. The previous one really was an odyssey, and so this does expand on it, and you can find that now. I'll tell you what, we're going to take a short intermission. We're going to come back. I've got a lot to cover after the break. We're going to dive into some other home deliveries, including one of Thomas's favorite films of all time. So stick around. We'll be right back after this quick intermission.
Won't you come and meet me at the movies? Won't you come and watch a flick?
Hi, I'm Shara Miller, the host of Artworks. Each month we bring to you wonderful, talented artists from here in Cleveland County and the region. We have artists, we have potters, we have painters, we have musicians, we have actors. We just have wonderful artists that come to you and tell you about all that they're doing, their creativity, what inspires them. Join me here on Artworks each month on C19. You can also watch us online at C19.TV.
Hi, I'm Nikki Bliss Carroll, your host for Cleveland Connections, the show that explores what's happening at Cleveland Community College. Join us as we sit down with members of faculty and staff to discuss programs of study, upcoming events, and other exciting campus news. We'll have a new show for you each month on C19 TV, or you can stream us online at C19.TV. Tune in and connect with Cleveland Community College on Cleveland Connections.
Hey, I'm David Allen, back as Armchair Quarterback host for 2023.
I'm Guy Suttle from C19 TV Sports.
And I'm Rob Rook from KTCBroadcasting.com.
What's in store on the gridiron for 2023? Each week we look at all 4 Cleveland County High School football teams, Burns, Crest, Kings Mountain, and Shelby. We will look at what happened the week before and look ahead at what's coming up this week.
And we'll also discuss ACC, SEC, and Gardner-Webb college football.
And of course, the NFL and those Carolina Panthers.
So don't miss another great season of football right here on Armchair Quarterback on C19 TV and online at C19.TV.
Won't you come and meet me at the movies? Won't you come and watch a flick?
Hello, welcome to Meet Me at the Movies, hanging out with Thomas Manning and Adam Long. And tell you what, we're going to be talking this half of the show about some releases that hit homes for home delivery back in the month of August, and some things are classic, and some things you may go, wow, that's a lot more classic than a lot. Some are even cult classics. So we're going to dive in. Thomas, you've actually done a nice write-up on this one as well. Was that in Echo Magazine? You covered one of your favorite films of all time, or was that for Elements of Madness?
It was actually Elements of Madness, courtesy of Mr. Douglas Davidson. He saw this one hit his inbox and knew that it's one of my all-time favorites. So definitely appreciate Douglas for sending me Ferris Bueller's Day Off, that opportunity to talk about the 4K release for the first time ever in 4K. And this is a film that is held very near and dear to my heart since I discovered it in high school, and I've only grown to love it more and more in recent years. And I've watched it in standard definition on DVD, and I've watched it in streaming before on Netflix. But this is the first time ever in 4K, and it's a really nice steelbook that Paramount has put together, and there's some excellent special features on here as well, including the original commentary with John Hughes, and so I think definitely want to have Adam talk a little bit about it as well, and give his take on this Ferris Bueller's Day Off 4K.
Well, yeah, it's. I think the transfer is terrific. I watched it on my projector, and it's really a nice upgrade. There's lots of fine detail, little fine grain in there. It's got a filmic look, and I think the audio is Dolby Atmos, I believe, on this. Yes, it is. And so it's a really good sound mix as well.
Smell the coffee,
as far as the special features, a lot of these have been issued and reissued. But the thing that I want to mention, on this, that is worth mentioning is the John Hughes commentary. Now that was recorded during the Laserdisc era, And so he recorded that, I want to say it was for maybe the 10th anniversary or something, or maybe 15th. No, it was probably about the 10th, because I think Laserdisc were done by 98, so it would have been about the 10th anniversary Laserdisc. And he didn't like the commentary, and so he just decided, I don't want that on any further reissues of this film. So it was buried. I think they put it on the very first DVD, and then after that it was buried. And so he's passed away, his wife has now passed away, and the kids are now in charge of the John Hughes estate, and so they're letting some stuff get out there that we've not seen before. They released 75 minutes of deleted scenes from Planes, Trains, and Automobiles on the last 4K release of Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. So there are some interesting things that the Hughes estate is now letting get out there. And it's a good commentary. If you haven't listened to it, Hughes was not the kind of person to talk about his work, as we all know. And so this is very valuable in terms of getting his take on this. I have interviewed the editor of this film, Paul Hirsch, who also edited Star Wars and The Empire Strikes Back. We had a conversation in 2020, and he had some very interesting things to say about working with John Hughes. He said that, he could be really funny, just on fire one day, and the next day he wasn't speaking to you, and you couldn't figure out what you'd done to make him mad. So he's one of those very mercurial personalities you never knew. And then after Planes, Trains, he never asked Paul to edit any more of his films, and he never knew why. He just didn't.
Wow.
It was one of those situations. So he was an interesting guy. So I would say pick this up. If not for the picture, get it for that John Hughes commentary, because it's very it's great to have that again on a physical release. So yeah.
To me, I absolutely love what we're able to find in, whether it's a DVD, whether it's Blu-ray, whether it's the whatever it is they provide us. And I know on a recent visit to a major toy store, I'll get it out there. On a recent visit to a major toy store entertainment emporium for adults and children alike, I love going through a lot of these DVDs and Blu-rays just to see what the extras are. So many times I'm more interested in kind of the commentaries or the documentaries or the things I can find behind the scenes than really how good the transfer is, because I've seen these movies, many of these movies so many times, but when I can get those gems, those nuggets of things I've never experienced before, that's what I'm looking for and excited about. So glad to hear that with Ferris Bueller, and it is available now. What else is on your list, Adam, of things that have been released recently for home delivery?
Yes, and I want to mention Paramount is the distributor of Ferris Bueller. I meant to give them credit. Sorry about that. Another one that's a cult favorite. A lot of people are fans of this. The Swamp Thing. Maybe you can see it now. Yeah, Swamp Thing. This is MVD visual. This has actually made the top 10 on the bestsellers list for the last several weeks in terms of Blu-ray and 4K releases. So there is a following for this. This has been issued before by Shout Factory, I believe, Scream Factory, I guess it was, about maybe 7-8 years ago. Now, one of the big selling points on this title is, and this is a Wes Craven film before Scream and before Nightmare on Elm Street. So he was trying something a little different, doing a DC Comics adaptation, and it was filmed right in our not far from here, South Carolina, right? I think it was filmed in the swampy areas of South Carolina. So yeah, it was a local production. The thing about this film is for years. Well, when MGM put it out on DVD, there was a 2 minutes. It was 2 minutes longer than the theatrical version, and so people put it in, and a lot of people assumed it was kid friendly. Well, Adrienne Barbeau is there's a scene where she's topless in the film in the cut that was MGM released, and so they were like, "Whoa, we got to get rid of that." So they immediately deleted that, and it was a European cut, is what it was. That wasn't supposed to be issued. They put the wrong one out. So that has been the holy grail among collectors for years and years and years to get the European cut of Swamp Thing. Well, guess what, ladies and gentlemen? It is on this new edition.
Adrienne Barbeau, she was a true sex symbol at the time, and
Yes.
she had on a TV series that people saw coming throughout their TV sets every single week. So when she was cast in this, there was a lot of interest in it. And so, yeah, you're right. That European version is one that a lot of people were, like you said, the holy grail of the Swamp Thing. So it's interesting that's on there.
Yeah, it is. And let's not forget, she was the Mrs. John Carpenter at one point. She was married to John Carpenter around the time he made The Thing and The Fog and all that. So yeah, the former wife of the great film director, John Carpenter. Yeah, this is, it's terrific. The transfer is great on this. I want to say they've done a really good job. And MVD is one of these boutique labels. They've been able to license some interesting titles from MGM. They did Rain Man a couple of months ago, and you would think that MGM would put that out, but MVD has, they've been doing pretty well. And this has quite a few featurettes. You got the 2 cuts of the film, and you get the you do get a 17-minute featurette with Adrienne Barbeau in there.
So let me ask you this: so the Swamp Thing is. It is a cult classic from a film standpoint, also really kind of a cult classic as far as DC comic fans are concerned.
Mm-hmm.
It's not the name brand. You got we know all the name brands with DC. So why was it that this particular character got love and was able to make it on the big screen to begin with? Is that even covered, or do you know any of the backstory on that?
I think it was Michael Uslan who eventually went on to do all the Batman. He produced all of the Batman films, including the most recent one last year. I think he was the guy who was behind. He had acquired the rights because he saw that there was some potential there, and it took him years to get it off the ground. And then they got Wes Craven involved. Like I said, he signed on to it, and it was but there's an interesting trajectory about how it got made, and it's all in these featurettes. I don't know right off the bat. I can't remember that story, but this was at a time, like you said, when DC properties were not on the big screen, and nor were Marvel. We got Howard the Duck just a couple of years later, so that's between the Swamp Thing and Howard the Duck.
An alternate take from doing your mainstream superheroes and superhero names that everybody knows. Yeah. Well, we got about 6 minutes. So what are other items you want to make sure you cover? Adam and Thomas, you've never seen the Swamp Thing. Have you ever heard of the Swamp Thing before this show?
Yeah, I have heard of the Swamp Thing, and I was actually going to mention James Mangold is set to direct a new iteration of the Swamp Thing for the new iteration of the DC Universe stuff with James Gunn producing. So so I don't know if Noel, you realize that or not, but that is something that's going to be coming up in a few years. Yeah,
I'd actually completely forgot about that, especially after seeing Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. My James Mangold radar just kind of stopped, and I keep going back to previous works that I'm watching a whole lot more. So we'll see if Harrison Ford shows up as kind of this aging professor that is trying to help the Swamp Thing find the lost ghost of Adrienne Barbeau. We'll just have to wait and see if that happens. And not James Mangold version, getting a little time travel thing going on. So, and Adam, what else is on your list, man, to make sure we cover that people can check out at home for home delivery now?
Oh, yeah, very quickly. Just 3 Warner Brothers titles. Actually, they're celebrating their 100-year anniversary this year. And so they've been doing roughly 1 to 2 titles a month. This month they did 3. The month of August they did 3. One was, and speaking of John Carpenter, a fan, he's a huge fan of this film, Rio Bravo there. And that served as the inspiration for his first feature film as a solo director, Assault on Precinct 13. He reworked the plot of that film for this. Reworked the plot of this film for his film, rather, is what I'm trying to say. Assault on Precinct 13. He does the commentary on this new 4K Rio Bravo. And it's a very laid-back film, shall we say. The pacing is really, I tell people, it doesn't get in a hurry where it's going. It's more of a character-based film. It reminds you of a lot of the Tarantino stuff where it's more about the characters than the plot. And
gotcha.
These characters are very well drawn in this film. It's also written by Lee Brackett, who wrote The Empire Strikes Back. Let's mention that, too. So, and you got Rick Nelson here, Rick Nelson and Angie Dickinson, John Wayne, Dean Martin, And the fabulous Walter Brennan does a terrific turn in this film, and he makes you laugh quite a bit here. The only extra here is a commentary by Carpenter and Richard Schickel, former critic for Time magazine. So the late Richard Schickel. So anyway, there you go. And quickly, we'll do the other two. East of Eden, one of the only 3 films, of course, starring James Dean. And this was based on the John Steinbeck novel about a son who just wants the love of his father so badly and can't seem to get it. That's essentially the plot of the film. You get a commentary here by Richard Schickel on this one as well, and it's a terrific transfer in 4K, but no other extras besides the commentary. But it's the other 2 James Dean films. One of them was released this year, Rebel Without a Cause. Giant was released last year, so all of the James Dean films have been issued in 4K. And then lastly, but not least, we have Enter the Dragon, which is considered to be one of the great kung fu films of all time.
Yeah.
And this was the film released 7 days after the death of its star, Bruce Lee. So he never got to enjoy the success of the film. I think the film is pretty incredible with the stunts and all of that sort of thing. But if you've ever made the mistake of seeing the Kentucky Fried Movie, which I did, first, there is a parody of this film in the middle of Kentucky Fried Movie called A Fistful of Yen. And once you've seen, do not see that first, because if you do, you can't take this movie serious. And I've always had a problem. And so anyway, you get a commentary here from Paul Heller and Michael Allen, and an introduction from Lee's widow, Linda Lee Caldwell. And you get 2 cuts of the film, special edition and theatrical. So
awesome.
Nice little 4K edition of Enter the Dragon. So
awesome. Well, Adam, thanks for sharing that information with us, and we're looking forward to having you on more often each month, maybe to give us some background on what people can find at Holmes, reissues, and some good background on those. Really appreciate it, Thomas. Thanks for joining us as well, and really appreciate you spending time with us. Everyone, no matter how you find us, we do thank you. You can always email us at info@C19. .tv, and you can check us out online on C19.tv or on Cleveland Community College's C19 TV. Appreciate you as always, and if you want to listen to the radio and podcast version, that's available through WGWG. So for Adam Long, for Thomas Manning, I'm Noel T. Manning II. Until next time, that is a wrap.
Many films to view until we meet again. Next time we see you, we'll gladly fill you in. We'll tell about the happy and the sad ones. We'll talk about the good ones and the bad ones. Many films to view till we meet again.
Education is our most powerful tool to improve and change our world. Hi, I'm Rhonda Benfield, your host for School Matters. Join me for a new program every other week with information from and about the students and staff of Cleveland County Schools. Discover what our schools are doing to challenge students and help them reach their full potential. You can catch us on Spectrum Cable Channel 19 or stream us live on C19.tv.